Okay, so here we are actually in the springtime of 1761, and we get some problems. First of all, the English decided to cut the subsidies to the Prussians. That immediately drops Prussia's monarchical will down to a 5. It's getting dangerously close. Now, what happens if both Austria and Prussia end up in the red zone here is sort of a white peace is declared, and victory conditions are assessed there. What Britain's assuming here is, hey, with the extra money, whatever, I'm pretty close to Prussia, I think, and well ahead of any of the other of any of the coalition members. I think I can win if it ends up in that situation. I mean, we'll see. They're taking a risk, but any game is about risk, right? Okay. France, once again, overspent just during sustainment. So their will goes down 1, and they're going to lose some cards. Well, 1 card because of that. And Prussia is down to -9. They lose a point. Ooh, they're getting close. They're not going to last. That's pretty clear. But anyway, they just lost a point, and they're going to lose 2 cards because they're more than 5 in the red. And they may also lose a special card. I don't know if they have one. We'll see. Okay? Okay, I've made it most of the way through the first turn of this summer, but I want to discuss one of my thoughts. Okay. The Austrians opened things up, and they played the supplying Russia side of the Liechtenstein's children card. That is allowing this Russian force to be able to draw supplies off of the Austrian system. Now that force has the commander-in-chief and no more than 25 strength points in it. So the Russians had to leave a subsidiary force back in Poznan. What else? Prussia followed up with the old court intrigue card, removing Luden, playing ping pong with him. He's gone, and this Austrian force isn't allowed to activate. I don't remember for how long, I think, for the next round. Yeah, at the end of it. So the next Austrian turn he won't activate, but then he becomes okay. As a disruption in the command. We go to the Russians, who slid down here. They're not besieging it. They're drawing supply. They're going to besiege Nice. Nice? I don't know. Nice? Wait, nice. Or possibly Glotz. It really doesn't matter. But either way, they're setting themselves up to work in conjunction with the Austrians and attacking Silesia, which should be an interesting problem. The Prussians got no reinforcements this year, basically, because they were out of money. So Friedrich has what he had after last turn, whereas the Austrians got a huge pile of reinforcements. Now they're still split among the 2 forces, one here and one up here, whereas Friedrich remained up in Saxony, which may not be wise, given that Breslau has more value. But if he can defeat Luden's replacement, then Prague becomes open, and all kind of interesting things are available. Going on, the English. Well, the French blew up the Hanoverian supply situation, which leaves, anyway, I ought to fix these. I haven't fixed this yet. It leaves the English basically unable to move, so they played, this is really exciting seeing these cards, Manila and Havana, which gives them some money, but most importantly 2 other things. An extra victory point, which now puts them ahead of Prussia, and a +1 die roll modifier on the separate peace table. Now, this is real important because the French are holding the peace negotiations card and kind of considering that. Unfortunately, when I looked at the values for a separate peace, The victory point difference between France and England at this point is +6 for France, -4, or +6 for England, -4 for France. That gives them a 10-point swing. That's worth 3. Manila and Havana is worth 1. That's +4. France is exhausted, +5. The best that the French can get out of this is an armistice on a 6. On an 8 or higher, either France is going to collapse or they're going to give a conditional peace. Now, if France collapses, that's just bad. That's an extra victory point well, first of all, the conditional peace can't happen because England is not exhausted. So I don't know what happens there. I assume that's just a no effect. But if France basically rolls a 3 or more, they'll surrender. And England gains a victory point off of that. And it frees up the English army. It takes the French cards out of the game. It really is going to weaken the situation, so I don't think France wants to play for that at all. They were kind of considering, oh, can we prevent worse things from happening? But really, I think their best situation is to just keep fighting on. They can't get rid of this -4 to begin with. They're stuck with that. The only question was, how much worse is it going to get? And if England attacks Austria, can we still maybe win if Russia's doing really well? I don't know. I think the answer is no, and France has to fight on. But I just wanted to go through all that before I move onward. Here we're in the third turn of the summer, and I'm beginning to, well, first of all, I looked up the victory conditions. Yeah, I've been playing under wrong assumptions. No matter how the game ends, these markers determine who wins. So it's not a matter of if Austria or Prussia surrenders that determines the victory. In fact, victory is pretty much predetermined at this point. I don't think there's any way that the coalition can beat the Allies at this point. Which means it's a struggle between Prussia and England, which we pretty much assumed anyway, but I thought that there was some possibility of knocking Prussia down here, well, down to 0 really, and being able to guarantee a coalition victory. That doesn't appear to be the case. Pity. So what happened? Austrians moved forward, grabbed Glotz. Dawn did that. And the Imperial troops moved up and besieged Leipzig. Frederick responded by moving up to Leipzig. These Imperials are no longer out of action. Are these Austrians? And defeated the Imperials, but both sides took 2 losses, so it wasn't really a victory for Frederick. We go on to Russia. They tried to activate their little command there. The French played Rumors of the Tsarina's Death, and it ended up freezing the unit there. Brits restored their supply by moving back to Krefeld, and then laid siege to Wesel. And the French responded with a relief force, which dropped the siege down to a 0. Okay, after 3. What happened? The Austrians? I do wonder what they did. Oh yeah, they got their movement canceled. They were going to move Dawn, and the Prussians used a card to cancel that. Speaking of the Prussians, Friedrich continued chasing those Imperial troops, and he routed them this time. Not a crushing victory, however, so no victory points for him, and no real bonus there. The Russians were out of action cards. All they had left to play that was of any value was the Polish grain embargo. That dropped Prussian national will down into the red zone. That's almost assuring that the game is ending this turn. Well, this year, not this turn. And with the victory point situation the way it is, it looks pretty likely to be a British victory. Who's next? Speaking of Britain, they played, this is a very cool card, the immediate capitulation. We saw this before. So Vessel surrendered, swinging another victory point, and then they marched over and laid siege to Rormund. And then the French tried a colonial action, and the British fleet stopped that. So in the fourth phase of the summer, we had bad weather. That kept the Austrians from being able, keeps anyone from being able to start a siege or pay points to increase the siege, or to make it a more, to make the siege more likely to fall, to take a second roll on the siege. So they played a Luden Rising and brought him back in command. I don't know what the Prussians did. Prussians putzed around with something. Oh yeah, they grabbed some captured cannons, the Austrian 12s. Russia's got no cards. They can't do anything. The Brits played, both Brits and French played colonial actions. Both succeeded. But the Brits also got Rormund, which increases their victory point positioning. So summer's over, we're dropping into fall. You'll notice another severe weather marker. As the game progresses, after Halley's Comet, and especially here after the death of George II, which has happened a while ago, bad weather becomes more and more likely. And I think that's actually indicative of either effects from the comet or possibly, I know around 1770 there was a little ice age that was centered around there. So this may be the very beginning of that, where really, really bad weather is starting to occur. So, because there was bad weather, nobody could siege again, and everybody kind of putzed around. Austrians bought some supply points. They needed them. Russians did nothing, of course. Prussia, what did they do? I think Prussia passed. Yeah, they didn't want to play their card. Let me get an Austrian, or an Imperial unit there. Did not recover. Britain destroyed some more French troops, and the French grabbed some more back through volunteers. So here's what's interesting. The French are fatigued, which means their colonial counter is not going to come off, but the Brits do get theirs back. So they're going to be able to do another colonial action, which is probably another victory point before the end of the game. Alright. So the event for the turn was Elizabeth's death. That swung Russia around. The net effects of this are actually quite strong. Russian morale drops to 0. Austria loses 3. Prussia gains 1. And the Swedes go away. Russia's going to show up as a client, blah, blah, blah. But we're at the end. Austrian national will dropped. Prussians made it back up. And as far as I can tell, there's no benefit to having knocked Austria out for the Prussians. I may have missed something there because I know there are places where you get a bonus for knocking someone out. For example, Britain and France will. But as far as I can tell, that means it's going to be a coalition victory. And it's going to be a British one. And that's pretty much what we expected. It's just Elizabeth's death made it a little faster. I'll be back for a separate vid to wrap this sucker up. But, alright.